Our story begins in the year 732. King Cold, the supreme leader of the Cold Force, is faced with a tough decision. Who will he leave his fame and fortune to? One child is young and has more potential, while one is older with more experience. King Cold decides that he can't decide, and officially splits the crown in two. One faction becomes the Frieza Force, and one faction becomes the Cooler Force. So together they create the new faction of the Fruler Force. With two kings on one throne, the regime gets a bit intense, especially with the recent propaganda from Planet Vegeta. Apparently, some Saiyans believe that one day, a Super Saiyan of legend will rise from the planet and destroy all opposition. Some Saiyans find it foolish, while some are much more optimistic. Frieza believes that it's not worth keeping the Saiyans around if this is a possibility. On the other hand, Cooler believes he's paranoid. The Saiyan race is far too profitable to be let go, and the fear they've instilled in the Saiyans is far too powerful. He has no fear that they'll stop being obedient tools. So, the two emperors create the 15-year plan. A plan that kept the Saiyan race alive for the next 15 years to truly extort them to the max. This would include food rationing, forced excursions to other planets, and a major increase on taxes as time goes forward. This leads to a time of violence and poverty for Planet Vegeta, but a phoenix of hope rises from the ashes of the planet's colony. This is Kakarot, the son of Bardock and Guinea. Born in the year 737, the same age as the agreement, but Kakarot was nowhere near a normal Saiyan child. In his first month of life, they couldn't get a power level reading. Their old scouters would simply explode when looking at Kakarot. So they used the new ones issued by Lord Frieza, and they were shocked to see that Kakarot already had a power level of 10,000, yet only when he was upset. Though even when he was calm, his power level was still alarmingly higher than the other infants. This information was alarming to King Vegeta. How could this low-class garbage have a higher power level than his son, who's 5 years older? It's unheard of. This could be the... But he bites his tongue, and tells his advisor to keep an eye on the child just for the next few years. And that he does. Goku's early childhood is actually quite normal. He begins to learn more about the world from Guinea. His father's out on missions quite often, but he does see him every so often. Though Bardock's saddened that he's still too young to train, but one day he'll be ready. Although the race is beginning to have supply issues, Bardock's family is well off enough to have 3 meals a day. Speaking of family, there's also Kakarot's older brother, Raditz. He wasn't nearly as impressive as Kakarot at birth, but he's still quite powerful. Actually, he's already starting to go off on missions. So life goes on pretty peacefully for the next however many years, despite the economic tension. Kakarot turns 5, and he's finally ready to begin training. Bardock teaches him the basics, such as stretching, muscle training, martial arts, which the Saiyans don't take super seriously, but they still have their own way of fighting, if you can even call it that. And Bardock was absolutely amazed at Kakarot's power. He almost gets overpowered by him when he gets mad, and he's a grown adult. But after a year of training, the prodigy draws unwanted attention. King Vegeta gets reports of the power level, and decides that now is the time. They need to make sure that this boy doesn't get found by Frieza or Cooler. He must be the Saiyan of legend, the one that will save them all. So, King Vegeta and his guards arrive at Bardock's residence, and apprehend the boy. Bardock at first threatens the guards, but after hearing the reasoning, he surprisingly somewhat agrees. His strength during training is strange, almost too strange, especially recently. He almost was seriously wounded after Kakarot lost it when Bardock went all out. Guinea's against it, but she gets ignored, and the group takes Kakarot to the lower catacombs of Castle Vegeta. Here, King Vegeta's plan was to mold Kakarot into the weapon they need to kill the Emperors. In the catacombs, King Vegeta used a piece of alien technology that one of the high-class Saiyans found on an excursion. This artifact eliminates key signature around it, as long as it's connected to electricity. King Vegeta uses this to hide Kakarot from any nearby scouters. So, they train Kakarot endlessly, not caring at all for his well-being. He's constantly being tested with Cybermen at all times of the day. He constantly needs to stay alert, even during rest, or he'll surely die. All he thinks about at this point is survival, and the need to go back home. But he can't escape because King Vegeta has convinced him that being free would mean the end of the Planet Vegeta, as well as his family. So for now, his life is suffering, but surely that will change in the future. A few months later, Prince Vegeta, the son of the king, hears high-ranking nobles talking about a young Saiyan held in the catacombs that could easily defeat 20 Cybermen at once. No way, this must be a lie. Even he can't do that. He decides to interrogate his father, and he breaks the news. Hell, it might help Vegeta break through some limits if he saw a younger child in him that's so powerful. So, Prince Vegeta finally meets the boy of legend, Kakarot. Kakarot's sick of being in isolation. He wants to talk to the boy. He asks about what's going on the surface, but Vegeta scoffs at the thought of making small talk with the low-class Saiyan. He came here to battle. So, Kakarot sighs, and the two spar. Prince Vegeta can't believe it. He's being completely overpowered. He's defeated, but he tells Kakarot he's not done. He wants to keep going. Kakarot suddenly becomes angry. He's had it with all the Saiyans and their pointless fighting. He attacks Vegeta and beats him to the brink of death. The guards are forced to electrocute Kakarot off of Vegeta to stop the fight. The prince yells with his last breath that he's a monster, and he passes out, getting carried out of the room. So, once again, Kakarot sits in his miserable isolation. He He does occasionally get to see his parents, but it's only for a very short period of time. About a year has passed in the catacombs, and Kakarot finally hit his breaking point. Screw this hole. He'll just use all of his power to stop Planet Vegeta from being extorted. He screams, releasing all of his power. The entire castle shakes violently, so much that it actually causes a power outage for the next few seconds. The backup generators kick in, but that short bit of time is all he needed to be found by a ship flying overhead. Soon, he hears loud commotion coming from the upper levels, then silence. A few minutes later, the door swings open, and King Vegeta enters, followed by a creature Kakarot's never seen before. This is Cooler, the son of King Cold, and one of the two emperors ruling the planet. He demands for the artifact to be unplugged, and so the guards do so. Cooler frowns. The child seemed much more impressive on the scouter. Could it be defective? There's only one way to find out. He asks the boy his name and demands him to fight. So Kakarot does the one thing he knows best, and fights the Emperor. For the first time in his life, he's completely overpowered. Even using the full extent of his energy, Cooler doesn't seem to be breaking a sweat, but he is smiling coldly. Cooler suddenly stops fighting and tells the boy well done. He could very well be the strongest Saiyan in history. He tells him that he'll be back in a short while, and to continue his journey to become the strongest. He doesn't care if that planet's in Frieza's domain, that child will be his for the taking. He flies away and decides to keep all this information from his advisors as well as his family. So for the next few years, Kakarot continues this hell cycle in the catacombs. He soon loses his childish demeanor and becomes cold and cynical. He comes to the understanding that he's a weapon to be used by his people, and nothing more. The only friend in his life is Prince Vegeta, who comes down every once in a while to test a new power against him, which always ends up in a loss. Vegeta slowly opens up about what's going down in the surface. Poverty has hit a new high, and the Saiyan planet quota is increasing every month, which has the low and mid-class populations working overtime to satisfy it. That explains why his father hasn't been over to visit much. So he continues his empty existence, looking forward to the day he can finally escape. A few years pass, and Cooler once again returns to the planet. He tests Kakarot, who at full power makes him exert himself a lot more than he anticipated. He's also much older looking than the other Saiyans his age, possibly due to the mutation that makes him such a formidable foe. Cooler grins. This is it. He's broken and ready to be shaped into something more. Cooler offers the boy freedom from this dungeon. With him, he'll be safe from anyone in the entire universe, and Kakarot happily accepts. He no longer has any attachment to this planet. He's allowed to say goodbye to his parents, and now Kakarot's officially a member of the Cooler Force. Here, he works as one of Cooler's official minions. Week after week, he's sent on recon and slaughter missions to collect more planets for the Cooler Force to capitalize on. Soon, he actually does well enough to join Cooler's armored squadron, a group of elite warriors that sit at the top position of Cooler's lapdogs. He likes to train with Dor, Neats, and Salza, although there's no competition unless they all attack him at once. But he has no real relationship with them. They all despise him because at the end of the day, he's still a filthy Saiyan. One day, about a year into service, Cooler's advisor requests him to deal with planet 4032877, also known as Earth. Usually, this planet wouldn't be touched, but with the rapid expansion of the Cooler Force, they have the resources to do so. So, Kakarot gets sent in a Cooler Force ship. He arrives and it's clear that this planet has already been taken over by some sort of alien. He finds the strongest key signature on the planet. The alien introduces himself as Demon King Piccolo. But Kakarot doesn't care. It's the end of the line. He effortlessly slaughters the king. But after slaughtering the rest of the Namekian offspring, he notices another key signature. Not large, but stronger than the rest of the planet. Since he wrapped up a little early, he decides to investigate. And on a small little island in the middle of nowhere, he finds an old man by the name of Roshi. It's clear he's way past his prime, but the way he fights, it's nothing like Kakarot's ever seen before. King Piccolo was arrogant, sloppy, and relied on brute strength. But him? He was refined, smooth, every punch and kick had a purpose. Kakarot says he's had fun, but he has a quota to make. He sticks a fist directly through Roshi's chest, killing him instantly. For some reason, Kakarot enters his house and finds an outfit that he's never seen before. He's almost drawn into it. Behold, the Turtle School uniform. Kakarot hates the Cooler Force armor, it's stiff and he can't move. So he weirdly puts on this new outfit and leaves, satisfied with his choice. So Earth is sold to the highest bidder, and Kakarot continues his slave lifestyle for the next few years. At this point, he's completely hollow, and simply a killing machine. He no longer remembers why he's doing this, or what his future goals were. He's just kind of existing. But finally, Goku's power will be put to the test. The armored squadron reports to Cooler. It turns out that one of the great mysteries have been solved. Over the past few years, many planets in the area have been terraformed, making them unsellable. This action digs in the pockets of the Cooler Force. But they finally found the headquarters of these vigilantes. After recon was done, a man by the name of Lord Slug seems to be their leader, and he's in Cooler's domain. So, the squadron gets sent to deal with him. Dor, Neats, Salza, and Kakarot all arrive on the planet, and they split up. Dor and Neats go left, while Kakarot and Salza go right. They find some formidable foes. This is Lord Slug's Demon Clan. They're much stronger than the Demon King on Earth, but the combined power of Kakarot and Salza is just too much to bear. They soon get completely slaughtered, no survivors. They finally arrive at the main structure on the planet to meet up with the other team, but they're shocked to see a man standing with the bloodied heads of Dor and Neats. This must be Lord Slug. Due to the monstrous size of the Fruler Force, Lord Slug was set in another direction, different from canon, where he found a few local Namekians with their own set of Dragon Balls, which he used to turn young once again. Salza, terrified of seeing the death of his two friends, panics and runs the other direction, but Kakarot stays. Finally, a worthy foe. They clash, and Lord Slug's much stronger than anyone he's ever faced, other than Lord Cooler. He's actually too strong, and Kakarot's finding himself to be somewhat overpowered. It's a close fight, but Lord Slug's power eventually defeats Kakarot as he slams into a building. The impact makes Kakarot delirious. What's he doing here? He was weak, and now he's going to die on a faraway planet with nothing. His race will die off, and everything he knows will vanish. Here, he once again finds his original purpose. His people. He will be their sword once again, and he will not die here. He screams like never before. His ki explodes in a golden shine. Slug backs away, terrified of what's happening. The world shakes, and Kakarot is reborn as a warrior of legend. A new blue-haired warrior descends from the building and approaches Slug with a cold and empty stare. Slug screams and becomes a giant. He swings at Kakarot, but it's stopped with a single hand. He punches the giant, sending him flying. After he shrinks back to normal, he panics and bows down to Kakarot, saying that he pledges allegiance to the Fruler Force. But Kakarot couldn't care less about who he prays to. His mission was to destroy. So Kakarot grabs Slug and proceeds to dig his fingers into his neck, eventually finding his spine, and he rips the entire head off. Namekian regeneration unfortunately does not help here. With the head of Slug, Kakarot and Salza return to Cooler's ship, who's ecstatic with Kakarot's power. He was watching from Salza's scouter, yet it exploded when Kakarot transformed. Since he has a very similar power, he's very interested. He decides to personally train Kakarot for the next month, but it's no use. For some reason, Kakarot can't use his transformation technique, no matter how much power he puts out. Cooler, disappointed, puts Kakarot back on lapdog duty. Once again, Kakarot drifts from planet to planet, destroying all who oppose him. He's become a legend of the Fruler Force. With Planet Vegeta plunging into poverty at this point, he's known as the Betrayer, the Saiyan that left his race to rot. But Kakarot doesn't care. He hasn't been back in a while, and he really doesn't see the point of visiting. Even Frieza's heard of the legendary Saiyan at this point, but he doesn't bother. What's another monkey to him? His brother's a fool to take interest in a weakling. A year has passed since the Slug battle. Kakarot's now around age 15, and once again finds himself drifting past the galaxy he was born in. After another takeover, he's ready to get back to the mothership, but something seems to be calling to him. It's strange. Maybe he should finally return home. It's unfair that he hasn't seen his family in so long. So, he changes trajectory to Planet Vegeta. He notices a pretty unusual amount of Frieza ships around the orbit, although there is some Cooler Force too. Someone must be back to extort. Suddenly, he gets closer and sees the hell that's Planet Vegeta. Explosions, fire, rubble, a rampaging war between the Saiyans and the Frieza Force. Completely filled with rage, Kakarot bursts through the side of his ship and plummets to the surface. He immediately exterminates all Frieza Force soldiers in the vicinity, and eventually gets to the castle walls, where he finally meets Emperor Frieza for the first time. But he already knows who this is. He's far too similar to Cooler. Frieza laughs. Well, this must be the Monkey of Legend. A pleasure to meet you, although the circumstances are unfortunate. The 15 years are up, and you primates are of no use to us anymore. Kakarot says nothing, and slowly walks toward the Emperor, who laughs and throws a punch. But Kakarot catches it effortlessly, and throws Frieza to the ground. They begin to battle, but Kakarot's overpowering the Emperor. He decides to transform into his second stage, and the fight gets interesting. They're quite even in power, but Kakarot's battle experience gives him the upper hand. This forces Frieza to go further. He transforms once again, into a third and hideous form. This is where Kakarot loses his footing. The overwhelming ki blast sends Kakarot to the ground. He gets up slowly. In his blurred vision, he sees an all too familiar face. His father, Bardock, picks him up, and together the two face Frieza, ready to do this together. Frieza scoffs and the battle begins, but it's still quite one-sided. Bardock gives it all he's got, but during the fight he gets swiped by Frieza, sending him crashing down to the ground. Here, Kakarot realizes what's at stake. His family, the only thing he's ever loved. He screams and evolves once again. But instead of rage, his eyes are full of determination to defeat this monster. Bardock can't believe it. His son is truly the Saiyan of Legends, the Super Saiyan. Kakarot completely dominates Frieza, beating him senseless. Frieza's surprised. The legend truly is real. His true nemesis arrives. He cackles and removes all of his limiters, transforming into his final form. They clash and it shakes the entire galaxy. But the future looks bleak. Since this is his original form, Frieza's much more accustomed to it than Kakarot, who is only using this power for a second time. He ends up getting sent to the ground near his father. He gets up once again and sees his father with pride in his eyes. This pushes him to get up and try, even if it kills him. Cooler, watching from the sidelines, is disappointed with the turnout of the battle. He knew his brother was formidable, but he is stronger than he originally thought. This calls for a bit of an unfair strategy. Kakarot prepares for another round, but suddenly, from the sidelines, a death beam fires and directly pierces Frieza's bicep. Frieza screams and looks over to see his brother chuckling. He screams that he's next, but Kakarot gets the jump on him and begins to beat him senseless, once again. After the death beam, it seems Frieza's lost mobility in his right arm, so he's at an extreme disadvantage. After almost being beaten to death, he pleads for Kakarot to be honorable and letting him transform into his full power. Kakarot laughs and says, "Do you really believe that you deserve life?" Frieza once again begins to beg, but Kakarot plunges his fist through the Emperor's heart, ending the battle instantly. He then fires Ki Blasts at his dead corpse just to make sure that there's nothing left. And just like that, he's done it. He saved his people, and best of all, his father. His father weeps tears of joy and begins to run to Kakarot. But there's no escaping his fate. A ray gun fires, putting a hole directly in the back of Bardock's head. He gives a lifeless look into Kakarot's eyes and falls to the ground. Cooler screams out, calling the Cooler Force soldier a fool for interfering. The soldier, terrified, says that he's just following orders, but Cooler sends an eye beam in his direction, evaporating the soldier. Kakarot will never forget the cold and empty stare of his father. It's all he sees when he closes his eyes now. It's finally over. There's no reason to hold back anymore. It's time to let the hatred finally consume him. He screams as if the entire universe could hear him, bringing out immeasurable power. He screams so hard the skin rips off his face. A green energy builds, larger than the castle standing before them. Kakarot's changed into something. Not a Saiyan, not a monster, but the devil itself. Cooler knows what he needs to do. He powers up to a form beyond final, a form that not even Frieza or his father achieved. He is the pinnacle of strength. The two lock eyes and clash. After fighting, it's apparent how the legendary Super Saiyan got its name. Even in this form, he can't hold a candle to the Saiyan. He gets beaten to the point of death. But as he hits the ground, Cooler shoots an eye beam directly at Kakarot's eyes, temporarily blinding him. He then flies into the air and prepares to channel all of his energy into one massive supernova. He'll do Frieza this one last favor and destroy this planet for good. Kakarot looks up at the ball, unfazed. Cooler says good riddance and fires. But Kakarot roars and shoots a massive Ki Blast from his mouth, which directly penetrates the supernova. The ball erupts and the force throws Cooler back into the planet. He crashes down, dazed and confused. He looks up and peers into the empty void of Kakarot. He pleads to spare him, and even offers Frieza's half of the Fruler Force, but stops halfway. He remembers how pitiful Frieza's last moments were, and finally accepts his fate. Do what you must, Saiyan. I brought this upon myself. Kakarot roars, grabbing both of Cooler's arms. He then places a foot on his chest and proceeds to rip off the Frost Demon's arms. He looks at the bloodied mess of Cooler and explodes in Ki, completely eliminating him. But the rage doesn't stop there. It's no longer Kakarot. This is an entirely new person, a person of rage and emptiness. He ends up going berserk and completely eliminates the planet, inevitably killing the last Saiyans in existence. The high-class Saiyans, the Vegeta family, and even Kakarot's own mother all die in the vacuum of space. This begins Kakarot's new life as a destroyer, although some would say that he's always been one. From planet to planet, he destroys the good, the evil, and the unknown, unable to ever escape from the curse of the legendary Super Saiyan. The real Kakarot may still be alive inside, but for now, who knows. Years later, Whis, the Angel of the Universe, gets an unexpected call from the Supreme Kai. There's trouble brewing, and the Destroyer must be awakened. There seems to be an unknown entity who destroyed the entire North Galaxy and half of the East Galaxy by now. There's nobody left to stop him. Shin personally sent his attendant to deal with the matter, but he never arrived back to the land of the Kais, so he assumes the worst. The only one that could stop him at this point is a Destroyer. Whis sighs and says that he supposes he could wake him, although he will be quite angry. There's no telling what he'll do to that mysterious creature. So, Whis wakes Beerus, the Destroyer God. Pissed off, he tells Whis that this better be good. He was supposed to be sleeping for at least another 100 years. Whis gives him the breakdown, and Beerus snarls. So, he sleeps for a measly 20 years and some punk thinks he could take over for him? He won't stand for this. Whis, although he can't intervene, has been watching over this mortal, and tells Beerus that this mortal defeated both Frieza and Cooler quite some time ago. Beerus is quite surprised, but is pissed that he wasn't the one to erase those two idiots. It's time to move. Beerus and Whis then warp over to the location of this monster. They arrive and find Kakarot slowly drifting around in space with a completely dead expression. He immediately looks forward and fires a ki ball directly at the two gods, but it evaporates in the presence of Beerus. Kakarot looks again at Beerus and grinds his teeth together, then charges at the god. Beerus avoids the punch, and in a flash of light, he flicks Kakarot's head, sending him flying into space. This powerful hit is finally the thing that sends Kakarot out of his eternal slumber. He finally comes back into consciousness. He remembers his life, his past, and his now. With all the lives he's taken, he doesn't deserve to take another breath. Beerus appears in front of the monster, looking him dead in the eyes. Kakarot smiles and musters one last breath. I'm finally going home. Beerus smirks, and the last thing that Kakarot ever hears is Hakai. And that is the end of Kakarot's story. If you enjoyed, feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more Dragon Ball content like this. Alright, I'll see y'all in the next one.